Oh, buddy. It's so wet outside. Alright, I just want to talk about some common problems on Ford steering columns. Steering column can, if you have to replace it, it can cost $150 and up. They're not cheap, and most of the time the airbags alone aren't cheap, and taking them apart is no fun, whether it's just simply removing the airbag or anything else that might need to be changed. So usually people will change the whole steering column, but I just pulled this column here out of a Ford Explorer Sport Track, one of those 4-door short box Ford Explorers, and anyway, when I pulled it out, this shifter here was all loose, and it would go ahead and back, even no matter which gear you were in. It was sloppy all the way around. So here's one of the common problems. See this rod here? This is all it's like cast aluminum, but I think it's more like die cast. It's some type of brittle alloy, and this here comes down to this end, and you'll see that little notch there, and it locks into notches depending on which gear you're in. And this pin was missing. There's a little plate that goes across there, and it goes up and down. So I had to fix that. And these two bolts here, when you shift it, they turn the rotation here into a lever action here. And if these two bolts come loose, which they seem to come loose all the time, like this one right here, I can wiggle it with my fingers, and that's a very common problem. These two bolts come loose, and your shifter will go loose. And these caps that hold, there's a cap here, 2 bolts, and another cap here that holds your shifter rod. Sometimes the bushings can go loose in those also. Okay, so I found this here, and it's a T30, that's the size. It's a T30 Torx. It's a 6-point. Now these are different from Allen or Hex, whatever you want to call it, so don't try to use those. Now I have not tampered with this steering column. I removed it from the Ford Explorer Sport Track, but they use the same setup on the Ford cars, the Ford trucks, like the Crown Victorias, F-150, F-250. They use the same shit. And I use the word shit quite literally. Excuse my language. So they're made from die cast or cast aluminum alloy of sorts. It's brittle, they break, and the shifters go sloppy on these columns all the time, big time. So this shaft here, it's hard for me to hold the column from rotating, the whole column from rotating, but you'll see that's the way the shifter works, like that. And when you pull back on it, you have to pull back on it to get it out of park. When you pull back on it, it lifts up that dog there. And this here is an electronic park lock, so if you don't have your key turned on, it won't come out of park. Well, it's not supposed to come out of park anyway. And these notches are for your different gears, so you can't accidentally bump it from first into reverse or drive to reverse or whatever. But the common problem, I'm in a little bit different light here now. Let's see if I can tip this back a little. There's bushings in that clamp and that clamp, and I can wiggle this one. I can wiggle it a little bit. There's a little bit of slop in that bushing there, but it's not too bad. I've seen worse. But if you combine that with the fact that this pin here comes out all the time, that's a bolt that I put in myself because it fell out and this was all sloppy and all adrift. There's a nut I put on the back of it, right? My camera won't focus. Right there. There's a nut I put on the back of it right there. And I'll take the shifter here. And you can see the action as I push down on here. And this rod through the center, when I push down on it, that rod pokes out like that. Now, as I was starting to mention earlier, at the very end of all this cast alloy, which is brittle and not nearly as strong as steel, at the end of all of that, if your bushings are okay here, and if your pin is okay here, and if you make it all the way out and if all that's okay, then here's another common problem. These bolts. These are Torx bolts. I have not tampered with this. I just found this here, and because I realized that I would need it. Now this one seems to be tight, and it's on like the inside of the pivot because the shift cable is out here. So all of your torque is on the furthest out point of your radius. So this is the furthest out point coming towards your shifter. And if you notice here, I can turn that with my fingers. Okay? I can spin it out with my fingers. That's another common problem on these. And when that's loose, this plate will come loose and you'll get even more slop. Even if it's not, even if you have one bolt that's tight plus that center pin, it'll still slop around on that one tight bolt. It might pivot there a little bit. This is a big common problem on the Fords. Now, I don't own any Fords, but I have to work on vehicles to make a living. So I like to just show people. I would probably never own a Ford in my life because I've worked on so many of them, but I just like to show people some of the common problems. Anyway, this bolt here, I don't know if this was assembled in the factory and where they build these, Mexico or USA or what, I don't know, but whoever put this together, they did it on like Monday morning or Friday night with a hangover. There's no Loctite on those threads. It looks like there's anti-seize compound, which is the opposite of what should be. Just blow some of the wet stuff off of there. It looks like it's lubrication or anti-seize compound on there. Now, if you're going to go about tightening up your bolts or fixing your column, I would highly recommend that you put thread lock or Loctite. Oh my goodness, it's the little Beagle dog. Oh my goodness. Watch out, Ryder, you big slobber face. I would highly recommend you put Loctite on those threads. If you're going to put this back together, or if you're going to fix one, or maybe you're just going to put a new one in your truck and your old one's mangled and you want to make sure your new one lasts. I would highly recommend you put thread lock on those threads. And that'll stop it from working loose. And just grab your Torx 30 and doesn't matter if it's a ratchet or an Allen wrench. Oh look, this one's loose too. I haven't even That's only with the ratchet, like that's with no pressure on it at all. Wow. So I'm gonna just snug these up for now, but if this was your truck and if you were wanting to fix it, or your car or whatever, this is a Ford Explorer, but they're all the same. I pulled one out of an F-150 the other day, same thing. And my plow truck, the F-250 I used to plow with, Super Duty, same thing. There was a guy here the other day looking for parts for the same setup for his truck. And there was a Crown Victoria, a Ford steering column out of a car, and it was the same. Ford, they're not very inventive with their ideas. So anyway, I just tightened those up for now, and I put that bolt. That pin right there was completely missing. I don't know why. Everything was all gone sloppy here, and yeah, I've got that bolt put in. I've got these tightened up, and that's about as good as she gets for a Ford. Anyway, I hope this helped you guys. And like, comment, share, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.